You nurtured your cucumber seedlings with such love and care. Every single sprout was under your watchful eye. And yet, after moving them to their new, roomier home, they suddenly turn yellow, droop their leaves, and wilt. Sound familiar? Trust me, you are not alone. Today, we are going to break down the 20 trickiest mistakes people make when transplanting cucumbers. Mistakes the seedlings simply will not forgive. I promise you, after watching this video, your seedlings will move stress-free, guaranteeing you a magnificent future harvest. By the way, do you even transplant your cucumbers, or do you sow them directly into the ground? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Before we start listing the common errors, let's address the main question. Why are cucumbers so finicky? It all comes down to their root system. Unlike tomatoes, which can grow new roots from practically every inch of the stem, cucumbers have a very delicate taproot system that recovers poorly after being damaged. Any injury to these roots is a massive stressor that drains the plant of its energy and time. This is precisely why experienced gardeners don't talk about pricking out cucumbers, but rather potting them up or up-potting. Classic pricking out involves pinching off the tip of the main root to encourage side root growth. For a cucumber, this is a disaster. Up-potting, however, is the careful transfer of the plant, along with its entire root ball, from a smaller container to a larger one. Our goal is to make sure the cucumber barely even notices it has been moved. By understanding this difference, we can avoid 90% of all possible problems. The number one mistake many beginners make is rushing things. You spot the first couple of tiny leaves emerging from the seed, and you immediately think, okay, it's time to transplant. But these aren't the true leaves, they're cotyledons. Think of them as a tiny backpack of food for the seedling. They hold the essential nutrient reserves. The plant is still far too fragile. Its root system has barely started to develop, and any intervention at this stage will cause massive shock. Transplanting when only the cotyledons are showing is a guaranteed way to slow its growth by a full week and potentially kill the seedling outright. The seedling will spend all its energy simply trying to survive and adapt, rather than focusing on upward growth. So, practice some patience. The perfect time to transplant is when your cucumber seedling has developed 2 or 3 true leaves, the serrated ones. By that point, it will have a robust enough root system to handle the big move without too much stress. On your screen now, you can see the perfect example of a seedling that is ready for transplanting. However, just like rushing, delaying the process is the other extreme, and it's equally dangerous. You might think, let it grow a little bigger, let it get stronger first. But while you wait, a quiet drama is unfolding in that tiny cup. The roots are getting cramped. They start winding into a tight, tangled mass, literally choking each other out. The limited volume of soil quickly runs out of necessary nutrients, and the plant starts to starve. You'll notice the signs: stunted growth and the yellowing of the lower leaves. And when you finally decide to repot it, you'll pull out a dense, felted ball of roots. Trying to untangle them without causing severe damage will be impossible. After repotting, that plant will take a long time to recover, adapt, and settle in. It has already wasted precious time and energy. So, remember this rule. The phase of 2 to 3 true leaves is the sweet spot, the ideal window of opportunity that you absolutely must not miss. Let's talk about the absolute core of this process. This is the moment of truth. You gently remove the seedling from its starting pot. And here, the third and most critical mistake is often made, the attempt at a true pricking out. This means you deliberately pinch off the very tip of the main taproot. While this gardening technique might be beneficial for tomatoes or peppers, forcing them to develop a dense, fibrous root system, for a cucumber, I repeat, it is the equivalent of major surgery without anaesthetic. Its main taproot is its lifeline. It is the primary channel for absorbing moisture and nutrients. By damaging it, you doom the plant to long-term decline. It will turn yellow, stop growing, and eventually perish. Forget the word pricking out when dealing with cucumbers. We only perform potting up, or careful transfer. Our sole purpose is to preserve the entire soil plug, intact and unharmed. Imagine you are handling a highly fragile antique. No sudden movements, no disruption of the root ball whatsoever. We are simply carefully moving it from one small room into a much larger one. Mistake number 4 is failing to properly prepare the new home for the plants. You might be using soil straight from the garden or grabbing old compacted potting mix. This is a major blunder. Cold, dense and unaerated soil creates a significant shock for tender cucumber roots. They are moving from the loose, warm environment of the starter cup into cold, hard vice grips. The roots will struggle to breathe, develop or absorb oxygen, dramatically increasing the risk of root rot. The transplanting medium should be at least room temperature and ideally slightly warmer. It must be loose, well aerated and highly nutritious. Ideally, you should prepare a blend in advance using peat moss, well-rotted compost, high-quality topsoil and a small amount of sand or perlite to ensure optimal drainage and fluffiness. This type of medium will feel like a soft feather bed for the roots, allowing them to happily continue their vigorous growth. The next common mistake involves selecting the wrong size container. Some gardeners, hoping to save time, will transplant a tiny seedling directly into a huge pot, a 5-litre bucket for example. The thinking is clear: I won't have to repot this again. But that decision is actually a major disservice to the plant. A small root system simply cannot establish itself or utilise that much soil mix. Consequently, the unused soil remains waterlogged after every watering. This creates an anaerobic environment where harmful pathogens and fungi thrive. The plant ends up essentially sitting in a swamp, which almost guarantees root rot and disease. It's like moving one person into a huge cold castle, uncomfortable, inefficient, and lonely. The golden rule is simple. The new pot should only be 2 to 3 centimetres, or about an inch, larger in diameter than the previous container. This gives the roots sufficient space to grow over the next several weeks, while guaranteeing that the entire soil volume is utilised evenly and efficiently. The flip side of the coin, and equally detrimental, is repotting into a container that's too small. In this situation, you're just trading one problem for another. If the new pot is only marginally larger than the old one, the roots will quickly reach the sides and immediately start circling, becoming root-bound again. You aren't actually solving the crowding issue, you are just postponing it for a very short period. The plant will not receive the necessary stimulus for vigorous growth because its root system will almost instantly find itself in cramped quarters once more. This is pointless work that causes the plant unnecessary stress without providing any real benefit. Therefore, always properly assess the size of the plant's root system. If you see that the roots have completely wrapped around the soil ball, don't hesitate to choose a larger container. But, as we mentioned before, don't go overboard. Ideally, you want about 1.5 to 2 centimetres of free space between the old root ball and the walls of the new pot to accommodate fresh potting mix. Mistake number 7 is simple mechanical damage. We often grab the plant by its delicate, fragile stem when transplanting, but the stem of a cucumber seedling is incredibly tender and watery. Squeezing it with your fingers can easily damage the vascular system, the vessels that transport water and nutrients. This pressure point creates a tight constriction that completely disrupts the plant's ability to feed itself. The plant will start to wilt and eventually die, even if its roots are perfectly healthy. Think of it like severely pinching a major artery. So remember this golden rule: never, ever handle the seedling by its stem. Instead, hold it by the cotyledons, the first, small seed leaves. They are sturdy enough that even minor damage to them won't critically harm the plant, or, even better, gently support the entire soil plug from underneath with your open palm. This minimises all contact with the plant itself and effectively reduces the risk of transplant injury to 0. The 8th mistake on our list is one of the most widespread and deadly. That is, burying the seedlings too deep, right up to their cotyledon leaves, or seed leaves. A lot of people do this because they treat cucumbers like tomatoes. Tomatoes actually thrive on deep planting, developing strong secondary roots along the buried stem. But here's the thing, a cucumber is not a tomato. When a cucumber stem is placed underground, it won't produce those extra roots. Instead, in the humid, airless environment of the soil, it will almost certainly start to rot. You are essentially creating a perfect breeding ground for fungal diseases like damping off or black leg right at the base of the plant. That's like wrapping a soaking wet scarf around your neck and expecting to warm up. The correct planting depth should be exactly the same as it was in the previous container. The absolute maximum you should allow is burying the soil line about 1 centimetre higher. This provides enough stability but won't pose a rotting threat. Mistake number 9 is the exact opposite problem, the flip side of the coin. Fearing they'll bury the stem too deeply, some gardeners overcompensate and plant the seedling too high, leaving part of the original root ball exposed above the surface of the new soil. This instability causes several issues. The stem wobbles loose, and any sudden movement or even routine watering can cause the entire plant to flop over. Furthermore, the exposed upper roots are left open to the air and will quickly dry out, which is terrible for the plant's overall health. After transplanting, the entire root ball must be completely covered with the new growing medium, and the plant should sit snugly and firmly in the container. The soil line in the new pot should be exactly level with the surface of the original root ball. This simple step ensures both excellent stability and proper root development without the risk of the root structure drying out. Getting your seedlings ready for transplanting is a critical step. And mistake number 10, drenching your plants right before you plan to move them. It sounds logical. You want the plant to be fully hydrated to minimize transplant shock. But in reality, this strategy completely backfires. An overly saturated root ball gets heavy, mushy, and extremely fragile. When you try to slide it out of the pot, there is a high probability it will simply crumble in your hands, exposing and damaging those delicate feeder roots. And that is exactly what we are trying desperately to avoid. The correct approach is to water your seedlings several hours, or ideally, the entire day, before transplanting. This gives the excess moisture time to drain away. The soil will be just moderately moist, and the root ball will be firm and hold its shape perfectly. It will slide right out of the container without crumbling, allowing you to move it into its new home without the slightest bit of damage. Mistake number 11 is the exact opposite problem, but equally disastrous. This involves trying to transplant a plant when its root ball is completely bone dry. You forgot to water your seedlings, and the soil in the pot has turned to rock. When you try to pull the plant out, the dry soil crumbles away like sand, leaving you holding nothing but bare, vulnerable roots. The fine feeder roots, the ones most critical for nutrient absorption, will dry out and die within minutes of being exposed to the air. Even if you immediately pot up this seedling, it will suffer from colossal stress and dehydration. Recovery from such a harsh transplant will take a very long time, assuming the plant survives at all. This is why you must always check the soil moisture before transplanting. The soil should be lightly moist, like a thoroughly wrung-out sponge. This is the ideal condition to ensure the root ball stays intact and the root system remains healthy. Okay, so your plant has successfully moved into its new home. But here is where mistake number 12 often crops up: watering with cold water. You might take water straight from the tap or a well and use it on your recently transplanted seedling, perhaps a young cucumber. For its root system, which is already stressed out from the move, this is basically like taking an ice-cold shower. That sudden temperature drop causes the root vessels to spasm and clamp up. They stop absorbing moisture, even if the soil around them is completely wet. As a result, the plant might start wilting right before your eyes, even though you just watered it. The water you use for seedlings, especially right after transplanting, needs to be settled and warm, ideally around 23 to 25 degrees Celsius. This is a comfortable temperature that won't shock the roots. Instead, it will actually help them adapt quickly and start doing their job in the new environment. The 13th mistake seems illogical, Yet it is surprisingly common, completely skipping the watering step immediately after transplanting. Some gardeners believe the fresh potting mix holds sufficient moisture on its own. However, this is simply not the case. For starters, when you transplant, tiny microvoids or air pockets inevitably form between the original root ball and the fresh soil in the new container. If you don't saturate the soil with water, the roots exposed to these pockets will quickly dry out. Secondly, watering ensures firm contact between the roots and the new soil, a crucial step for rapid establishment and successful rooting. Therefore, you must water the plant immediately after transplanting. Don't flood the pot until it's a soggy swamp, but rather carefully saturate the soil with lukewarm water around the edge of the container. This process allows the soil to settle, compact around the roots, and effectively eliminate all air pockets. This crucial step helps the plant quickly anchor itself in its new home. You've just finished repotting, and with a great sense of accomplishment, you immediately move the pot to the sunniest spot you have, that bright, south-facing windowsill. This is mistake number 14. The plant is already stressed and weakened after transplanting. Its root system hasn't fully established itself in the new soil yet, meaning it cannot deliver the necessary amount of moisture to the leaves. When exposed to direct sunlight, however, the leaves rapidly start losing moisture through transpiration. This causes severe wilting and adds tremendous extra stress to the already vulnerable plant. For the first 2 or 3 days after repotting, you need to place the plant in a bright but well-shaded spot, completely protected from intense, scorching sun. An east or west-facing window is ideal, or simply a location deeper inside the room where the light is filtered. Give the plant time to recover and acclimate in these calm, gentle conditions. Once you see that the leaves have lifted and the plant looks vigorous and healthy, you can then gradually start moving it back to a brighter location. The 15th common mistake is closely related to the last one: drafts. You've transplanted your seedlings and then left them on a windowsill near an open window or vent. Even a slight cool breeze is a serious stressor for an already weakened plant. Like direct sunlight, a draft speeds up moisture evaporation from the leaves, resulting in a loss of turgor or wilting. Furthermore, the sudden temperature shifts caused by drafts negatively impact the root system. Cucumbers are inherently a very heat-loving crop, so drafts are a strict no-go at any stage of their development, especially right after transplanting. So, during this crucial adaptation period, for those first 2 or 3 days, ensure your plants are protected not only from harsh direct sun, but also from all drafts. Let them recover in a quiet, warm, and still spot. When trying to help a struggling or newly transplanted plant, many gardeners make a crucial mistake. They immediately start fertilizing. They often reach for fertilizers, growth stimulants, and various other chemical products. It feels like you're providing crucial extra nutrients, but you are actually causing significant damage. Any root disruption, even during the most careful repotting, creates tiny, microscopic injuries on the root system. If concentrated fertilizer solution hits those wounds, it will cause a severe chemical burn, essentially destroying the root tips. Not only will the compromised roots fail to absorb the nutrients, but the solution can actually kill the plant entirely. You must wait at least 10 to 14 days before giving your plant its first post-transplant feed. This gives the plant enough time to recover, heal its root system, and begin actively establishing itself in the new soil. Only once this process is complete will the plant be ready to accept and utilize supplemental nutrition without causing itself harm. The 17th mistake happens right when you sow the seeds, growing all your seedlings communally in one large tray or container. When it comes time for transplanting or pricking out, you face the main problem. The roots are thoroughly intertwined. Separating them without causing damage is almost impossible. You pull up one seedling, and the roots of its neighbours inevitably follow. As a result, none of the plants can be successfully moved with an intact, undisturbed root ball. Every single one suffers severe root system trauma, leading to long recovery times and stunted growth. This is precisely why it is strongly recommended that you start sensitive seedlings, especially varieties like cucumbers, in individual containers right away. Use peat pots, plastic cups, or dedicated cell packs. This practice allows for the smoothest possible transition when potting up. You simply lift the plant along with its personal root ball and move it into a larger container. This guarantees healthy growth and rapid development for your seedlings. The 18th common mistake is neglecting the anchor. You might have moved your plant into a new pot, added fresh potting mix, but failed to lightly compact the soil around the base of the stem. This leaves a hollow space, and the plant wobbles around like a pencil in a glass. It's completely unstable. The first time you water it, it could easily tilt, lean heavily, or even fall right out of the pot. Crucially, without firm contact, the roots cannot anchor properly or quickly establish themselves. Once you've placed the root ball into its spot and covered it with fresh substrate, make sure you gently press down the soil around the stem using your fingers. Don't press hard, just enough to make it compact. This simple step provides the necessary structural support and ensures that vital, dense root-to-soil contact needed for rapid establishment and healthy growth. Your plant should feel firm and secure in its new home. Mistake number 19, the second to last on our list, is the use of cheap, low-quality peat pots. The concept seems wonderful, planting the whole pot directly into the soil without disturbing the roots. However, inexpensive, poor-quality pots are typically made of extremely dense, pressed cardboard mixed with glue. Their walls are often so hard and rigid that the delicate cucumber roots simply cannot penetrate them. As a result, the root system remains trapped inside this peat sarcophagus. Its growth is severely stunted, and the plant fails to develop properly once it's out in the open garden. If you insist on using peat pots, always opt for reputable, well-tested brands. Before planting them out, it's best to carefully tear or crumble the sides and bottom of the pot to help the roots break free. Or, better yet and much more reliable, use plastic cups or containers from which the root ball can be easily removed without disturbing the plant. And finally, the 20th mistake is purely psychological. We tend to rush. Transplanting seedlings isn't a race or a sprint. Take your time, move slowly, deliberately, and avoid abrupt movements. Prepare everything beforehand. The potting mix, the containers, the water, and the exact spot where the trays or pots will sit after the move. Treat the whole process as a form of meditation. Your state of calm will naturally translate into your movements, making them smoother and more precise. Cucumbers, like all living things, are sensitive to your energy. When you approach them with love and care, rather than irritation and haste, the results will invariably be better. Remember that you are not just executing a technical gardening procedure. You are helping a small living creature transition to a new, more robust stage of life. That gentleness and careful handling are arguably the best growth stimulant available. Here they are, the 20 tricky pitfalls waiting for us when transplanting cucumber seedlings. As you can see, almost all of them are somehow related to the cucumber's main characteristic, its incredibly delicate and vulnerable root system. The wrong watering schedule, incorrect temperature, unsuitable soil, even one careless movement, and your delicate cucumber is immediately plunged into deep stress, setting its growth back by weeks. But the main takeaway that ties all these mistakes together is our attitude. We need to stop treating the cucumber like a tough soldier, the way we treat a tomato, and start seeing it as an aristocrat, one that demands respect for its personal space, especially its roots. Stop aggressively pricking them out and start gently potting them up. You will immediately notice a huge difference in how well they establish themselves and how fast they grow. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you found this information useful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on new secrets for a bountiful harvest. Now, a question for you. Which of these 20 mistakes have you personally encountered? Or perhaps you have your own secret technique for stress-free cucumber transplanting. Share your invaluable experience in the comments below. Let's help each other grow the crunchiest and most abundant harvest yet.